So you may be wondering, well, Talbot, how do you make sure that that one point applies to everyone's life? I mean, because if you have 3 or 4 points, maybe one of those different points would apply to different people within the congregation. And that's a valid question, but maybe mostly it's a valid question because I think I have a pretty good answer. The technique that I have used through the years of making that one point applicable to multiple generations, really, is something like this. One of my favorite one-pointers from a number of years ago was, what you tolerate today will dominate you tomorrow. What you tolerate today will dominate you tomorrow. And so in the application of that, I might be able to say something like, for some of you who are parents of teenagers, what you tolerate today in your 13-year-old is going to dominate you when that 13-year-old is 21 and still living in your basement. Or for others, for those of you who are married young men, and what you tolerate today with just a little bit of internet activity that shouldn't be part of your life will dominate you tomorrow when your wife finds out you got to go to rehab. Or might even apply to people who work in church land. What you tolerate today, we're going to tolerate just a little bit of false teaching today because we want to welcome everybody. Well, 6, 7, 10 years later in that same church movement or denomination, that little bit of false teaching will now masquerade as the new orthodoxy, and it will dominate you. So there are ways to say, hey, some of you are at this stage in life and here's how it relates, and others are at this stage in life and this is how it relates, and all of those combined together have helped make my one-point sermons, I believe, apply to many different people in different stages of life. Way back in 2006, it was still in the 21st century, but when I first became aware of a one-point sermon, and I love my 4-point messages. I was dedicated and devoted to preaching those 3, 4 points. I knew how to do it, and I will always remember reading something that about if you want to make that switch, and the leader said, one of those points out of your 4 is one you like a lot better than the others. Just preach that one. And dang it, if that wasn't 100% true. So when I was first transitioning to a different method of sermon design, I'd do maybe 3 or 4 points, and I'd realize immediately which one gave me the energy. I'm going to preach that one. And that way the people's minds are filled with the one thing I want them to know, and rather than the clutter that they didn't really need to be bothered with. One other thing I just really want to leave people with on a one-point sermon is just the privilege of wordsmithing. I talk in the video course and in the book of making sure that you have a biblically faithful and yet rhetorically compelling one-point message, one that people can lodge in people's minds and they can remember. And when I first started at them, I wasn't especially good. They weren't especially memorable. But the more I've done it, the better I've gotten. And I think that same thing will happen with you. I mean, there's quite a few that I'm proud of in recent years that I feel like, that had enough wordplay, it was compelling enough, it was memorable enough. Things like surrender your impulses so you don't surrender to them. That sticks. But that wasn't in my first year of working on one-point sermons. It comes with repetition. It comes with practice.